Hello world and true believers. This is Brenda, a lost Aspie girl, and I'm going to make today's video about empathy, about the difference between cognitive and affective empathy. But also I just want to mention that I did make a video earlier, but I deleted it because I felt like I was lecturing a little bit, and I don't like when people lecture to me, and I didn't want it to come off that way. I meant it to be encouraging. It was about the fable of the scorpion and the frog, and I had on my website that I told you guys about before, I had rewritten the fable of the scorpion and the frog, and I called it Scorpion and the Foxy Frog. And it was kind of supposed to show that although life is sometimes like the scorpion and it stings you, that you don't have to avoid life to if you don't want to get stung there, if you find it, if you can be foxy enough and find another way. And I'm going to rethink that and revisit that at a later date. But right now, like I said, I wanted this to be about empathy, because I was looking up the difference between affective and cognitive empathy. And affective empathy is basically like emotional or primitive empathy. It's the ability to sense that someone else is in distress, like intuitive empathy, and then knowing how to react in an appropriate manner, which, if you think about it, is actually sympathy. Because if you tell someone something's going on, or they sense that you're in distress, whatever, and they say all the right things, that doesn't necessarily mean they understand things from your perspective. It just means they're able to do something to actually make you feel better about your own situation. Cognitive empathy, the definition of that is trying to understand things from another person's perspective accurately, or relating to them, or experiencing it vicariously through like storytelling or something like that. If you think about it, that's actually more in line with the actual definition of empathy. So, and this got me to thinking. I think that those of us on the spectrum, we actually experience true empathy more so, I think, than other people. Not in the way that people use the word empathy, but actually the true definition of the word empathy. I think cognitive empathy is actually trying to see things from other people's perspective. And this kind of goes back to the test, the theory of mind quiz, and why I think the child on the spectrum gets it quote unquote wrong, and thinks that the child, will look in the other box, because they're just looking at evidence. Because at that point in their life, they don't have enough experience to understand things from other people's perspective. They don't have their own experiences. They don't know other people's stories and everything like that. Whereas the other person is not looking at any of that. They're doing that intuitive thing. That basically they're trying to. It's that assumption thing. I think intuitive empathy is not being perceptive. It's making assumption. And so, like, bear with me. This is going to take a little while to get into this a little bit, but okay. I know that the way I relate to most people in the world is through storytelling, or through my own stories. So, like, I've noticed it on here, like, something I don't get in the rest of my life. Usually if I tell somebody a story about something that happened, they try to give me sympathy. They try to say all the right things, and I get frustrated. I'm not really good at giving sympathy, but I'm not also good at receiving sympathy either. If I tell someone something that's happened to me, I want them to show me that they understand, by either telling me a story about themselves, or someone else, or kind of repeating back to me what I've said, and been like, oh, like, that must suck for this, whatever, like, I don't know, like, showing me that they understand, because I don't want to know that they feel bad for me. I just want to know that they understand what I'm going through, because sympathy is such a weird thing. It's like, I think, like, neurosocials always just trying to make each other feel better, or worse. It's always like this game of ego, and either building each other up or pulling each other down. And I don't think it's like that as much with us. I think we really want to understand people. And bear with me, like I said, I'm gonna get into this. One of the things I mentioned in an earlier video, how for a while I was obsessed with serial killers. And this got well, and part of the reason that made me think about this empathy is I was reading a lot of comments from people last night. I realized I wasn't getting notifications, and someone asked me to think of my top 20 movies, and I started sifting in my brain through all movies, and I realized I have way more than that. But while I was sifting through the movies in my brain, I started thinking of the movie Manhunter, and the book that it was based on, Red Dragon, and then the remake of Manhunter that was more accurately based on the book Red Dragon, and then the TV show Hannibal. And Will Graham, and how there's a lot of speculation about his character, about whether or not he has Asperger's and everything like that, because he's able to see things from the perspective of, like, the reason he was able to catch the serial killers is because he was able to literally put himself in their shoes. Now, this was very interesting to me because I remember the first time I saw Manhunter, I remember relating to the character. It was William Peterson who played that character at the time of Will Graham. And I remember relating to that because I felt that the only way that I could understand other people was either I would relate it back to myself, to something that had actually happened to me, and I would understand what happened to them by thinking about a similar story that happened to me. The other thing that I would do, like, sometimes I would read a story in a book or watch a movie or whatever, and it would help me understand somebody else. And I'm going to give a couple of examples of each of these. But the other thing that I was able to do sometimes, if I was able to block everything out and kind of sometimes put myself, if I wanted to understand somebody, like I said, okay, so let me get back to the whole serial killer thing. I was obsessed with that mindset for a while, and I couldn't understand why they would, like, do what they did. So I tried to, in my head, envision what it would be like if people were just food. If, like, I couldn't relate to people on any level and that they were just a means to an end to me, what would that be like? And how would I be in this world? And, you know what I mean? If you couldn't relate to people, because, I mean, we might not have that affective empathy that comes, like, intuitively, but we have the cognitive empathy. Like, we want to relate to people. It just sometimes we have a harder time getting there. Like, it kind of goes into the whole big picture thing. It's not that we don't see the big picture, just how we get there is slightly different than the neurotypical or neurosocial brain. And I feel like this is kind of the same kind of thing. And the thing is, like, sometimes if we haven't had a similar thing happen to us, when we are able to put ourselves in that person's shoes, we can do so and, like, look at it without judgment. And I think that's why Will Graham, when he would look at the serial killers, although he was able to empathize them, he didn't judge them, and that's why he was able to catch them, because his emotions didn't get in the way. He was able to look at it logically. And I think that's true empathy, when you're able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and look at it judgment-free and not allow your actual emotions as who you are to contaminate that perspective, and maybe not even experience any emotions at all, and just see things from that person's point of view. And I think it could go either way. If something has happened to you, maybe you experience the emotions that you felt at the time when that thing happened to you, or if you're doing something like this, like an exercise like this, and you're trying to understand a serial killer's perspective, and you're trying to see what it would be like to see people as food, maybe you would do something similar. And another way, and like I said, like, I think a lot of times people on the spectrum understand people through storytelling. And I'm going to give an example in my own life and a couple other things. Is, like, I mentioned in another video how for a while I didn't understand why my brother and father saw Snowden as a traitor, because I didn't agree with that. I thought he was trying to do something good. He lost everything, and he seemed like his motives were very altruistic. So I know he went against the country, but I didn't understand why that mattered. If what he was trying to do was right and it actually helped people, and they just agreed, and they would get really angry about it and didn't want to talk about it and stuff. And I would kind of push it a little bit because I didn't understand it and I wanted to understand. And it's weird because I went and I saw Rogue One a couple months ago. And as I was watching it, like, all of a sudden things started clicking, because there was one of the resistance fighters, when the rebellion was going to get disband, like, all of us, he goes to Jenna and he's like, she wants to go find the plans for the Death Star, and he wants to join up with her, and he's like, I've done all these horrific things for the rebellion, And I can't live with myself knowing I've done these things if I don't have, if I'm no longer doing it for them. I need to know that what I have done serves a higher purpose. It actually means something. And all of a sudden it all clicked together to me because both my father and brother were in the military. My dad was in Vietnam and my brother went to Kosovo. And I'm sure they both have been diagnosed with PTSD, and I'm sure they don't talk about it or anything. I'm sure that they both had to do some really horrific things. And in order to live with themselves, they need to see America as the greatest country. Because if they question it, if they question America itself and the orders that they were given, then they have to start to question what they did. And if they do that, they might not be able to live with themselves. And that's kind of crazy. And all of a sudden, I understood why they saw things the way they did. I still didn't agree with them, and I don't feel sympathy for them. However, I'm now able to empathize with them and see things from that perspective without any judgment. And that was very interesting. And that happens to me a lot, where like I won't understand something from somebody's perspective, and then I'll read a story, or they'll tell me a story, I'll be able to relate to it, or I'll read a book or something that has something similar in it, and that allows me to vicariously be in their shoes. And all of a sudden, it'll all click together, and I'll understand, and I'll be able to empathize with that person. And the interesting thing is, like I think I mentioned before that my nephew was diagnosed with ASD, high functioning ASD. And he reminds me a lot of how I was when I was little, except with where I read a lot. I got into computers later, but he's a little gamer. But he also likes to watch videos on people playing games, and this drives my brother bonkers. And I decided to talk to him because I thought I understood why he was doing it, and I wanted to confirm my theory. And I asked him, I was like, do you watch videos of people playing games because you want to vicariously experience the gameplay that they're having through them? And he's like, I don't know what that word means. And I was like, okay, so when you watch the videos of people playing games, do you feel like when you're them, you become that person playing the video games? And he was like, yes, Auntie, oh my God, yes, that's exactly what it is. It's like, I like playing the video games, but sometimes I want to understand why people play the games the way they do, or why they're doing it the way they do. And the only way to do that is if I watch them play the videos. And I was like, that's actually kind of fascinating, and that's why I used to read books and like all the time. It's gonna help me understand people, and that helped him understand other game players, which is very interesting to me. But and you know, I kind of want to make this video because I want to ask a lot of other people out there on the spectrum if it's similar. If like and the other thing I want to bring up is not that long ago I watched some of the show Community, and there's a character on there named Abed, and he actually, the way he relates to the world is through TV shows and characters and movies and things like that, and everything's a reference to a movie, and I related to him so much. I was like, I know exactly what that's like because I do the same thing, and it made me wonder, like, if there are a lot of other people that are on the spectrum that are like that we can't understand people as they are, and we can't have that immediate, intuitive, affective empathy, but we can have that cognitive empathy where if people give us enough details, if they allow us to see things from their perspective, then we're capable of seeing things from their perspective. But we need that story, And so I think that's very interesting, and I actually think that is actually true empathy. You know what I mean? It's not intuitive, but if you think about it, the neurotypicals or neurosocials, as I like to call them, when they're giving empathy, when they're feeling empathy, they're not actually understanding something from somebody else's perspective. They're not trying to understand things. They're just sensing that someone's in distress, and then they're giving them sympathy. That doesn't necessarily mean that they understand what that person's going through at all. And that's very different. And I know that that's sometimes a disconnect with me with people, because if I tell someone something happened to me, and then they're like, oh my God, that's horrible, I kind of get frustrated. I'm like, that's not what I want from you. I want you to show me that you understand by telling me a story that it's similar. And it's actually weird. Like I had the only ever therapist that I actually worked really well with. I used to call him my Yoda. I had him for 6 years. And the way he conducted his therapy with me, when I would go in there and I would be like, okay, this is what's going on. This is before I was diagnosed with this. He would say, I would say all these things in my life and everything like that, and he would go, let me tell you a story. And then he would tell me a story, and then from that I would be like, oh, you're trying to say that blah blah blah. He's like, I didn't say that, you said that. And his stories would give me insights, like I can tell you some of the stories that they told me. They were usually like they weren't about themselves, but they were like, we're like one time, I was having trouble like relating to people, like I told you guys before, and he told me this, what I call the circle story. And he's like, there's a circle and it's rolling down a hill, and it's a big circle. But all of a sudden you realize it's not actually one circle, it's two parts of a circle. And one of the parts of the circle starts growing and changing, and it falls off the other circle, and it turns into its own little tiny circle, but it rolls away. But the other circle is there, it's half of a circle, and it's on its back, it's like a turtle, and it can't move. And it keeps trying to move, and eventually it turns over. And it keeps doing that. And eventually it like smooths out its edges and everything like that, and it becomes a whole circle, and a small circle too, but it's still a whole circle. And as it's rolling along, all of a sudden it meets another circle about the same size, about the same, rolling about the same pace and everything like that, and they start rolling together. And I was like, I thought about it, and I was like, so what you're trying to say, I think, is that, like people in life, and that they might, usually they're codependent in some form or another, but as they grow and they get experience stuff like that, they become their own full circles, and only until they're a full circle, they're always gonna latch on to another circle, and that's not good. But eventually they'll find another circle that meets their standard. And if they don't, then it's okay, because they can just roll by themselves, and they're making it through life through themselves, and they're progressing. He's like, I didn't say that, you said that, and so that used to bother me. I remember, because people used to always tell me all the time that I was very literal. I'm like, I know what a metaphor is. I like stories. I read them. I understand what a double entendre is. I understand when there's double meanings. But that's in literature. It's like when something's a story, I can get all the layers in the story. It's just when people are talking, I take what they're saying literally, and that always bothered me. I'm like, when people are talking, like I used to always say this to people: just tell it to me straight, no mincing words, no prevarication. Like, just say it to me, just say exactly what you mean and mean what you say. Like, you know what I mean? Because that doesn't happen, and the people would be like, you're so literal, and I would get frustrated, because I would say, like, I love stories, and I love the depth and all the stuff that you can get from it. They help me to understand people. But I'm like, when people are talking, it shouldn't be like a story. Like, it should be just communicate directly. Just say exactly what you mean and mean what you say. But now I'm thinking that although I think that when people are on the spectrum, we communicate, we're very direct, and we say exactly what we mean and we mean what we say, we actually very much enjoy stories. For at least I do, and I can't speak for everybody, but I've noticed a lot of times that the way that I get comments from my stories and stuff is with other Aspies, is that they tell me stories about themselves, or stories about their children, or like the struggles that they're having, and we try to relate to each other and actually understand, rather than make assumptions about what is going on. So, I don't know, that's my video for today. Let me know what you guys think, and if you have any feedback, and hopefully I'll make, I wanted to make multiple videos today about like movies and stuff, and but I don't know if I want to do that now, but hopefully I'll do that soon. Maybe I'll try to do like a fun video, and one on my insights, but one also that's like kind of fun. I don't know, we'll see. So okay, thanks. Toodles, bye.